Hi, my name is Brian Ference. You can follow me on X at Brian Ference1 or on True Social at Brian Ference. Also on Rumble, MAGAMindPodcast.com and BrianFerence.com. Today with me, I have a very special guest, Gary Barve, who is running as a 2028 candidate for U.S. President. So this would be take right after Trump, right? That's the hope is after Trump completes his term. But say hi, Gary. Shout out your website and any socials and anything like that.
All right, Brian. Hey, thank you very much. Hey, before I begin, I just want to say there are some great American gardeners. I was just talking with Brian about it off air. There are some great American gardeners gardening behind me right now, so there might be a little bit of noise, but I'm happy to be on your show, Brian, and just want to quickly introduce myself to your great viewers and listeners. My name is Gary Barve. I am a huge supporter of our President Donald J. Trump, a proud Republican of the Republican Party that belongs to our President Donald J. Trump. And I'm officially running for President of the United States of America in the 2028 election to help President Trump make America great again, keep America great, and to help him save America. And I'm running because I love President Trump. I love our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And I love our great American people. And I want to help President Trump make America great again. That's why I'm running. And I just want to say this, Brian. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for me during the interview, my friend. But I just want to say this: I respect all religions, but I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I believe the Bible is the Word of God. And I genuinely believe that Jesus Christ is with President Trump. Jesus Christ is with our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And Jesus Christ is with you, our great American people. And, I said this a long time back: President Trump will win the election. He will save America. And he's continuing to do that in a tremendous way. What a tremendous start to his administration. Hundreds of executive orders signed. The southern border is so much more secure. And that's, I would say, the southern border security. My position against illegal immigration, Brian, is, in my opinion, the most important or the most strongest position that I have with my America First agenda. And I'll complete my introduction by saying this. I've made a campaign promise that I will support President Donald J. Trump's America First agenda, which is on my campaign website, 100% until November 2028. And after that, if I get the great honor and opportunity of being elected the next and the 48th President of the United States of America, I will always make decisions for our country, keeping you, our American people, first, and our country, America, first. And by the way, I love the flag that's on your screen, my friend Brian.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's actually like it's a physical flag instead of a virtual one. I have a light behind it. I do appreciate that. I definitely agree with you on the Christian aspect. Definitely on Donald Trump's agenda. Well, let me ask one
Yeah.
question right at the bat. Some people are saying there might be a situation, an argument at least, where because President Trump didn't serve consecutive terms, that maybe he would run for 2028 again. I mean, it might be unlikely. I mean, he's going to be older. There's the term limit, but it's not consecutive. What is your thoughts if President Trump decided
Well,
he was going to run again?
well, the first thing I'll say is I'm the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump in America, and we'll talk about this during the interview as well. I've proven that during my, previous half a decade almost that I've been a patriotic member of the patriotic President Donald J. Trump Republican Party, and it is President Trump's Republican Party. And the other thing I'll say is it's not an age issue. President Trump is the most energetic man on earth. He works like 100 hours a week, and maybe that's even an understatement. He works all the time because he loves the country and he wants to serve our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. But I will answer your question. I know President Trump has recently said that he may potentially run in the 2028 presidential election cycle for president. I think in a recent interview, he said he's not looking to do that. But I will say this, and I've said this on multiple shows. I've been on probably 20, 30 media interviews over the last few months. And I'll say this, and I'll say it consistently. If President Donald J. Trump is top of the ticket, top of the ballot in the 2028 presidential election cycle, I will drop out of the election. I would not be happy about it. I said this on, I think, the Jeff and Bill show and Michael Stapleford's Good Morning Keys radio show as well. I would not be happy about it because I love running for president and I want to make America great again, keep America great, and save America. That's the goal. but I will drop out of the election if President Trump is top of the ballot, top of the ticket in the 2028 election cycle. I will say this: the Constitution, in my opinion, says 2 terms. And so, if the Constitution is to be amended, it is my understanding, and I could be wrong about the exact details of this, it is my understanding that you need 2/3 of the vote in the House of Representatives, 2/3 of the vote in the US Senate. And I think you need ratification from 35 states or 37 states or something like that. And so, look, I think anything's possible to that extent. And I stand by what I said. And look, I love President Trump. He's had a tremendous personal positive impact on my life. And, I'll share a quick story with you, right? So, President Trump, I'll share 2 stories with you. I know we have about 45 minutes to an hour. So, if you're okay with it, I'll share
Sure,
two
go ahead.
stories with you about President Trump. So, President Trump announced that he's running for the presidency 2024 election on November 15th, 2022. I believe it was November 15th, 2022 from Mar-a-Lago. And, at that time, there were no indictments against President Trump, zero indictments against President Trump at that time. President Trump announces, and then there's indictment one, indictment two, indictment three, and indictment four against President Trump because of the political weaponization of the Department of Justice by the corrupt Joe Biden, crooked Joe Biden, and dumb as a rock Kamala Democrat Party. I mean, it's so obvious, right? No indictments, he announces, and then there's 4 indictments against him, one after the other. And while we're on the topic of indictments, I know Cheryl introduced me to you, Brian, and I interviewed with Cheryl's Chips and Salsa podcast as well, Chips and Salsa show, which is an awesome show as well. And I said this during that interview as well. I said, Letitia James, like the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, I call her, and people call her Big Tish. And so my direct message, and she completely weaponized the Department of Justice against President Trump. And she's like this horrible person who was sitting in the courtroom while they were politically, attacking on a judicial basis, court basis. They were weaponizing the Department of Justice against President Trump. And so my direct message right now to Letitia James or Big Tish is very simple and straightforward. When you address the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, remember this: he is Mr. President to you. And that's all I want to say about that. But, coming back to what I was talking about earlier, after there were 4 indictments and President Trump fought the 4 indictments in a tremendous way. And then, there were 2 assassination attempts against President Trump. The first assassination attempt on July 13th, it was like 1/8 of an inch. And, we would have had an even worse day than it turned out to be. And, the second assassination attempt against President Trump happened after that. And then there was the raid of the Mar-a-Lago during the 2024 election cycle. And the man, President Donald J. Trump, fought against this. And he fought against this in a tremendous way. And I kept saying this for a long time. One of the reasons I said President Trump will win the election is because he's a big Christian. Jesus Christ is with President Trump, and Jesus Christ is with our great American people. And, that's one of the reasons. And he's a fighter. That man, President Trump, is a fighter. And I believe in him more than I would say anyone else in the country. I will almost definitively, unequivocally say I believe in President Trump more than just about anyone else in the country. And, November 5th, 2024 arrived and he won. President Trump won, and he won against dumb as a rock and a corrupt Democrat Party in a landslide. Brian, 7 states, 7 battleground states, all 7 battleground states, President Trump won. And it was, I call it the greatest political comeback in the history of our country. And so, I ran for city council in 2020, right? And after the election was stolen from President Trump by the corrupt Democrat Party, I'm talking about the 2020 presidential election, I did not know at that time that President Trump will run for president again in the 2024 election cycle. But I just said I love President Trump and I'm going to support him and I'm going to fight for him because he fights for America and he loves our great American people and he fights for our great American people. And so he won, and it was a tremendous win for President Trump. That's one of the reasons why I say I'm the biggest, most loyal supporters of President Trump in the country. And the other story I want to share with you is the July 13th story, which I touched upon a little while back. July 13th, as you know, 2024, July 13th, 2024 was obviously the horrific assassination attempt against President Trump. This was in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I was actually at a Vietnamese Make America Great Again event at that time. I was a candidate for US Congress in Florida. And when the actual horrific assassination attempt against President Trump happened, I was at that event, Vietnamese MAGA event, and it is a candidate for sheriff at that event who broke the news to me. He said, Gary, President Trump has been shot. And I was devastated because I love President Trump. But even in that moment of devastation, I said to the candidate for sheriff, but President Trump is okay, right? Nothing can happen to him, because I genuinely believe that Jesus Christ is with President Trump. And so I went on stage, probably, Brian, this was probably about an hour, hour and a half after the actual horrific assassination attempt against President Trump happened. I went on stage, and there were probably about 200, 250 great MAGA patriots at the Vietnamese Make America Great Again event. And I said the following three things to show my love, support, and solidarity with President Trump. I said, first, my direct message to the criminals and the gangs and the cartels such as MS-13, to the drug dealers, to the drug smugglers, to the human traffickers is this: your brutal reign of terror in our great United States of America will come to an end on November 5th, 2024, when President Donald J. Trump will win the election, and we will once again shut down the southern border. We will build a wall. We will stop catch and release. We will stop asylum fraud, and we will designate all foreign cartels in our country as foreign terrorist organizations, and we will choke off their supply to the global financial system, and we will once again make America great again. Second, my direct message to the criminals is this: if you fire a bullet at President Donald J. Trump, or if you fire a bullet at me, Gary Barve, fighting for my and our great United States of America, I believe, and I believe President Trump also believes, it is not our responsibility to duck from the bullet. It is the bullet's responsibility to miss us. And the third thing I said was, I believe Jesus Christ is with President Trump. Jesus Christ is with our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And Jesus Christ is with you, our great American people. And President Trump will win the election, and he will save America. And he won big, like I said. And so, at that moment when I made that speech, I think there was a lot of sadness in the room that I was in the hall that I was in. And I think that gave a lot of encouragement to a lot of people, but it also did another thing. From that moment on, it made me a target for the rest of my life, because these gangs and cartels, MS-13, the other gang, Tren de Aragua, they do not like me right now. And I want to keep it that way, because when I look, so I'll say this, right? And I'll let you ask any questions as well. I know I'm taking a little bit of screen time here, but I've taken on, I said earlier that my position against illegal immigration is the strongest position that I have. And I'll say this: I've taken on these gangs and cartels such as MS-13, Tren de Aragua, the Sinaola cartel, in a way that is stronger than just about anyone else in the country other than President Donald J. Trump. And so, I'll prove it right now. I've been on national media networks such as RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network, on the Epoch Times with Jen Garcia, Epoch Times Espanol. And I've said the following to a lot of criminals and gang members. I've said, if there are any gang members from the Tren de Aragua 13 cartels that are watching, if you don't, we will incarcerate members of your gangs, or we will kick members of your gangs out of our country. And so I'm ready to take a bullet for you, Brian. I'm ready to take a bullet for all our American people, because I want to keep our American people safe and secure. Law and order is, in my opinion, the very fabric that holds our country together and makes us the greatest country in the world, along with many other things such as American exceptionalism, personality. The American people, our American people, like you, me, we have tremendous personalities. And I think that's one of the reasons, I believe, why we're the greatest country in the world. Entrepreneurial spirit is another thing. And so, that's sort of my position on why I say I am the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump in the country. And so, again, happy to answer any questions that you might have for me, Brian. And
Yeah, I've
really
got some.
honored, and it's an honor for me to be on your show today. Yes, sir.
We're gonna get into some interesting questions. Hopefully these are questions that you have not, some will be repeats maybe, but some of them hopefully be that you haven't had. So first of
Yes, sir.
all, if you're running for president, I think many Republicans, I think there was a straw poll that was conducted recently, possibly in Wisconsin, and other places. They're listing JD Vance as one of the front runners. So you're going to be running against JD Vance most likely.
If he decides to
Also,
run against me, I will be running against him. That is correct. Yes, sir.
yes, yes, and another name that's thrown out a lot is probably either Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr. To run for president in 2028. So let's just
I
say,
haven't heard that. I haven't heard that. Let me quickly respond to that. JD Vance, I think, will run against me. I think that's almost like a definite possibility. I
mhm,
don't think I've met Don Jr. at an event. I've met President Trump as well, by the way, and we had a great. I'll talk about it in a little while as well. I met him and had a great, quick interaction with him. I've met Don Jr. I don't think Don Jr. is going to run for president in the 2028 presidential election cycle. Eric Trump, I've been to one of his events. I've not had the honor and opportunity to meet with him in person. I don't think he's going to run. Eric Trump, I don't think he's going to run in the 2028 presidential election cycle. Jerry Vance, I think will run. I hope he runs, to be very honest. And
mhm.
I'll let you complete your question, and I'll
Sure.
politically attack Jerry Vance right now.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So I mean, why would someone vote for you over JD Vance? What is the main differentiators, I guess?
Well, I think the first few minutes of our interview today, I think I've pretty much mentioned my situation as to why people should vote for me. I believe I'm the most courageous person that's running for office from on a political stage. I'm not comparing my courage with our great police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, and first responders. They're very courageous people, and I have tremendous respect for their selflessness and their courage. So I'm not making a comparison, but I'm saying on the political stage, because of some of the things that I've said during this interview, and I've been saying for many months now, I believe I'm the most courageous candidate to run for president in the 2028 presidential election cycle. I have no doubt about it in my mind. The other thing I will say is, I'm like I said, I'm the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump in the country, and I'll debate anyone on that anytime. I have complete confidence in what I'm saying. And the other thing I'll say is I'm glorifying God. Now I respect all religions, right? I respect all religions. I want to say that very strongly. But I will say I am glorifying God. I am Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I believe the Bible is the Word of God. And I believe genuinely that Jesus Christ is with President Trump. Jesus Christ is with our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And Jesus Christ is with all our great American people. And so I'm glorifying God, Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior on the campaigning, on my campaign perspective, in a way that I believe no other candidate for president has ever done in the history of our country. And so these are some of the reasons why I think people should vote for me, or I believe people will vote for me or should vote for me. But I'm going to politically attack Jerry Vance a little bit right now. You mentioned he might run against me. Look, I will say this. I've called Jerry Vance a doofus. I've called Jerry Vance a docile cheeks beta male. And I know some people like that. Some people don't. I think some people who don't like that right now will start moving towards liking that over the course of the next 2.5 to 3 years. But I've called him that. And there's a reason I call him that. So before I get into those reasons, I want to say this. I support President Donald J. Trump's decision to select J.D. Vance as his running mate, as his vice president in the 2024 election cycle. I support that completely. I love President Trump. I support his decision. However, you need a certain type of personality to be president of the United States of America, and you need a certain type of personality to be vice president of the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump has that alpha male, I am president of the United States of America ability that I believe I have as well. And I believe J.D. Vance does not have that in any capacity at all. And, it's a very interesting thing. So there's a statistic, and I'm not really a statistics kind of a guy when it comes to campaign speeches and campaign interviews and things like that, but I'll give you this statistic. I read that there are only 6 vice presidents in the history of our country that have actually gone on to become president of the United States of America by winning their own elections. And there's a reason for that, Brian. There's a reason for that. Presidents are presidents for a reason. Vice presidents are vice presidents for a reason. And I called him docile cheeks beta male. And I'll get into that a little bit right now. I did that on Cheryl's Chips and Salsa show as well. I'll get into that right now. So I call him docile and beta male because he sort of stays in the background. And that's okay. For the sake of the country, Brian, I hope Jerry Vance becomes a great vice president. But, I call him docile and beta male for that reason. But, I call him cheeks beta male. And the reason I call him that is I believe J.D. Vance is conscious about his big cheeks and he covers it up with his beard. And if you here's the thing, right? So if you look at some of J.D. Vance's, the vice I'm talking about, the current Vice President of the United States of America, J.D. Vance, also known as Doofus. I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about him. If you look at some of his videos in the previous few years when he did not have the beard, it
Okay.
looks like, if you look at his cheeks, it looks like he has 2 or 3 pomegranates in his mouth, and that's a perpetual situation for him. And look, I'll say this. It's very simple. I'll say this. JD Vance right now is in the opinion. You mentioned a straw poll, right, my friend Brian? You mentioned a straw poll.
Yeah.
Maybe he got 50%, 60% of the vote in the straw poll. The reason for that is he's on the ticket with President Donald J. Trump, and he's the apparent front runner for that reason. And I will say this: JD Vance's apparent frontrunner status will start to slide. It will start to slide, and it will slide very
Mhm.
fast once he announces. And if he announces that he's running for president in the 2028 election cycle, he does not have what it takes to be president. And I'll say this, I'm talking about JD Vance. I'll say this: when that slide down starts for JD Vance, I hope he has some cushions at the bottom of the slide, because I don't want JD Vance to get hurt politically. And he's not exactly my biggest fan, and that's okay. I don't mind that. This is a
Okay.
political election for president of the United States of America, and it's a battle. And I'll say this: if JD Vance endorses my campaign for president in the 2028 election cycle, almost definitively, I'll say this, we'll probably be great friends. And that's how it works in the political realm. But until then, the gloves are off, and I'm looking to win this. I want to be the next president, the 48th president of the United States of America, and not just for some power grab, Brian, not for some power grab. I want to be the next president and the 40th president of the United States of America, because I believe I'm the right man to lead our country and make America great again,
Mhm.
keep America great, and save America. The other thing I'll say is, I don't know if you'll agree with me on that. Maybe at the end of the interview, I'll ask you this question, Brian. Uh, I believe I am the best interview in America right now from a candidate perspective on the presidential 2028 election cycle. And I think that's a very important part of campaigning. I want to reach 330 million people across the country and take the America First message to the 330 million American people. And I want to do it effectively, and I want to do it in a very positive and a great way as a patriotic member of President Donald J. Trump's Republican Party and his biggest and most loyal supporter. And I think that's another reason why I believe a lot of people are going to vote for me. I have interviewed with Mike Carter from Newsmax. That interview has not been broadcast yet.
Mhm.
I've met with Rob Finnerty, who is incredible as well. Rob Finnerty, primetime. He is going to invite me to his studio in New York. I said RSPN. Christina Loren interviewed me. And I've come from out of nowhere, right? I've run for city council in 2020. I've run for U.S. Congress in the 23rd district in Florida. I did not have, when I filed for office September 5th, 2024, to run for president in 2028 election cycle, I did not have the name recognition at all across the country, I would say. I had name recognition in the 23rd district in Florida, and in the district I ran in Santa Clara, California for city council. I didn't have the name recognition, but I think the name recognition is growing, and it's growing very fast. And I have a direct message right now to all my potential 2028 election opponents on the Democrat side and on the Republican side. Gavin Newsom, dumb as a rock, Kamala, far left socialist Democrat Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. She's horrible, horrible person. Her policies will destroy America. And then Bernie Sanders, who is planning on joining her on the ticket. This guy named Pritzker, Boot Edge, and I don't know, maybe Hillary Clinton will run. I don't know who's going to run. Gavin Newsom and all these people. I want you to run, and I want you to file right now, because I'm looking for opposition, because I'm dominating the 2028 presidential election cycle. On the other side, on the Republican side, I'm talking about the primary phase of the election. I want Ron DeSanctimonious to run against me. He
Mhm.
is I call him the most disloyal person in America, and I'm happy to get into that a little bit as well. Nikki Birdbrain Haley, I call her Nikki Democrat running as a Republican, Birdbrain Haley. Chris Christie, Mike Pence. I call Chris Christie Chris Colossal Rhino Christie. Mike Pence, who really should have sent the votes back to the states, and he
You should
betrayed
have.
President Trump. Mike Pence betrayed President Trump,
Yes, he
and
did.
so many other people. Carrie Lake will probably, I think she will potentially run against me. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So
I
many
don't think
people.
Carrie will run
Optimistic
against
kind
you.
of weak little Vivek will run against me. I feel I'm talking about Vivek Ramaswamy, Byron Donald. So many people are going to run against me. I want you to file for office right now, because I'm looking for opposition, because I'm dominating the 2028 presidential election cycle. And I'll say this: if you sit on your heels, I'm talking to all the opponents. if you sit on your heels and do not file for office in the next few weeks, months, hopefully today, I think I'm going to run away with this election, and you're going to have no choice but to concede even before you file for office. So file right now, please. Thank you very much.
Interesting. All right, now I got to show one thing because you mentioned the cheeks of JD Vance, and I had not heard that before. So what I was
Did you do a quick internet search on
I
his
did
cheeks? That is
I did
incredible.
do
I
a
like
quick
that.
internet search. I'm going to show. Let me show this real quick. Let's see. I'm going to
By the
show.
way, I'll say this, Brian. Your cheeks are a lot better than Jerry Vance's cheeks. How about
Well,
that?
thank you. And I haven't been necessarily referred to as slender cheeks ever, but all right,
No, I will refer to you as a handsome guy. Now look at that. Look at that. Those are big cheeks. Now let me ask you this, Brian. How many pomegranates do you think are actually in his mouth right now? And look, I have to politically attack these people because I want to knock them out of the election politically. But this is not the next president of the United States of America that you're looking at, Jerry Vance, on your screen. I can
I see
guarantee
why
you
he
that.
grew the beard. I mean, it makes sense
Right?
why he grew the beard.
I think he looks marginally better with the beard. I would recommend he keeps the beard. I will say this: if he looks at this interview, I'm sure he's following this interview a little bit. At some point, he'll follow this interview. He'll have that thing in his mind: should I shave my beard or not? I think it's gonna bother him a little bit, and I like that. I don't mind that until he drops out of the election. After he drops out of the election, I probably would say he's got a nice beard, right? So we'll see what happens.
No, that makes sense. And let's get into some vetting questions. I'm gonna kind of do rapid fire questions on you here, and
All
let's see
right,
if you can limit your answers maybe to like two minutes or so on each one because we got to get through a bunch of them. So
all
so
right.
tell me
That's
tell me
gonna be
your
tough for me
stance.
to do, but I'll give it a shot.
All right, we're gonna do it. Tell me your stance on abortion specifically.
All right. Well, I will say this. I am pro-life. I am pro-life, but I have the exceptions. I have exceptions like President Trump has for the three exceptions for rape, incest, and when the life of the mother is at risk. I have those three exceptions. But, President Trump got the position on the pro-life. I call it the position on the pro-life. He got it perfectly right. He got it incredibly right. And he proved that because he won the election in a landslide. I think he got like 312 electoral college votes, while dumb as a rock Kamala lost all seven battleground states. And so he got the position on the pro-life exactly right. The country is with him, and I support that position completely. It's gone back to the states. The states are now deciding. I think that's a great thing. And I think he did a tremendous campaign because him on this issue very strongly. But the manner in which he communicated was so tremendous. President Trump, I'm talking about President Trump. The manner in which he communicated his position is so tremendous that the Democrats really, if you look at it, they could not politically attack him in a very strong way as much as they would have liked to. And that's one of the reasons I would say President Trump had a tremendous win. So that's my position on pro-life. I am pro-life. I have the three exceptions for rape, incest, and when the life of the mother is at risk.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. And then I want to talk about something that Trump, in one of his executive orders, he took a pretty strong stance regarding election integrity and election fraud. And I believe he even addressed, wanting to limit mail-in ballots, limit early voting, go back to, one-day voting, paper ballots, no machines with ID. And it's interesting because there's a lot of Republicans that have the opposite approach. For example, anyone involved in like Turning Point, Charlie Kirk, Scott Presler, they push mail-in ballots and they push early voting, more than almost anything else. So, what is your position on mail-in ballots, early voting, Trump's executive order on election integrity?
Well, first, let me say this. I like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, I've met him a couple of times. I think he's a good guy. And I actually said this Charlie Kirk, I actually spoke at an event that Charlie Kirk spoke at in Florida a few months back. Well, I spoke one or two lines about my campaign at the event that Charlie Kirk spoke at. He was the main speaker at the event. And I'll say this Charlie Kirk is a young guy. He's 31, I think 31 years old. And I believe Charlie Kirk is one of the most, if not the most successful 31-year-olds in America right now on the conservative political side, or any side, I would say. He's the most successful person. He has got Turning Point USA, Turning Point Action. I know a lot of people who work with Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action. I know for a fact that at this point, Charlie Kirk has not officially endorsed anyone in the 2028 presidential election cycle. He's not unofficially supporting anyone in the 2028 presidential election cycle either. And I kind of like that. Charlie Kirk is a great guy. I like Charlie Kirk. I've met him. I met him in the sense I met him at an event, and he was like, "Hey, you're that guy running for president, right?" So that's our level of connection at this time. So I like Charlie Kirk. When it comes to election integrity, I will say this: I support same day election, paper ballots, signature verification, and voter ID. I think that's very important, and I think that will get us free and fair elections. I think that's very important. And I will say this: I actually mentioned this in my book. Believe it or not, this is a quick plug, right? I hope you don't mind it,
But
Brian. But I wrote a book. It's titled "One Nation Under God," and in the book, I talk about a lot of things. I talk about our great country, the United States of America. I talk about President Donald J. Trump and my loyalty towards President Donald J. Trump and love for President Donald J. Trump. I talk about the first time I met President Trump, which was in Florida at his Trump International Golf Club. And I talk about some campaign social media posts that I think people are going to find very interesting and maybe even somewhat a little bit controversial. And I talk about the America First agenda in that book, but I do mention this point about the election integrity in that book, One Nation Under God. So I hope people like that book. I really, especially the young people, also the senior people, the young patriotic people, young patriotic people, MAGA people, patriotic senior people in America, I think are going to like that book a lot. I hope it really helps our great American people. And it's on Amazon, iBook Store, and Barnes and Noble. And the first section of the book, I think, is quite interesting as well. Like I said, Brian, I've been involved in the MAGA, President Donald J. Trump Republican Party, for about half a decade. And I've given some observations, and I guess you could call it some advice points from my time working really, really like in a patriotic way with the man, President Donald J. Trump's Republican Party. And so that was a quick plug, but I hope you don't mind that.
that's
But
okay. I did have a follow-up question though.
okay,
So, I mean, you're talking about Charlie Kirk,
yeah.
and that's one thing. But so it didn't sound like you disagreed that Charlie Kirk and Turning Point Actions, their direct stance is to push early voting, mail-in voting. There's been a lot of discussion about their specific strategy, which they share with Scott Pressler, to target what they call low propensity Republican voters. These are Republican voters that they're not involved politically. Maybe they skipped a couple elections. They don't vote all the time. They're not informed. But there's other people that have argued that, well, the recent loss that we saw in Wisconsin and Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where they did in fact heavily target those low propensity voters, but then those low propensity voters received a lot of propaganda from the Democrats, and about 17% of their ballots then voted Democrat. Those Republican ballots voted Democrat. And basically, that's what lost the election. So you could argue that Charlie Kirk and Scott Pressler's strategy directly caused those Republican losses. Where
Brian, it seems
wasn't
like
on
you
the
don't like
ballot.
Charlie Kirk at all. What's
I,
going
I
on?
well, I'm giving you some facts.
Let me.
Well, hold
I'll
on.
respond. Let me respond,
Yeah, go
Brian.
ahead.
Brian, let me respond to what you just said. I'm not familiar with Charlie Kirk's exact initiatives in Wisconsin. I'm not familiar with Charlie Kirk's exact positions on the election integrity. So I do not want to make a comment on that. I know I heard from someone that he is probably on a board which supports President Trump or something like that. I don't know exactly, but I think Charlie Kirk is a great guy. He's MAGA. I think he supported President Trump's 2024 election cycle campaign in a big way. From what I understand, they did a lot of like voter outreach and they connected with a lot of voters. I like Charlie Kirk. I love President Trump. I'll say I love Charlie Kirk as well, but I love President Trump in a way that I believe no one else in the country loves President Trump. And it's President Trump who has had a tremendous positive impact on my life. And so I don't want to make a specific comment about Charlie Kirk's positions. I stand strong with the position that President Donald J. Trump has on the election integrity. I support same day election. I support voter ID. I support signature verification. And and that's pretty much my position on it. I support paper ballots. That's my position on it.
Okay, let's talk
And I
about
think that was President Trump's position during his 2024 election cycle as well. So I support it as well.
correct. Yeah, let's talk about the border and the deportations a little bit, and let's talk specifically about the Supreme Court, at least temporarily, blocking President Trump from deporting some of these, violent criminal gang members. What is your stance on that?
It's very simple. So I think I made a pretty strong statement about these gangs and cartels such as MS-13 and Tren de Aragua and Sinaola cartel. I visited the southern border a few days back, early on in this month. I think it was May 7th. I visited the southern border with some great American law enforcement officers. And I actually made a video about it and put it up on social media. It's got a lot of views. And I want to share a story with you. I think it'll sort of I think my position against gangs and cartels such as MS-13 and Tren de Aragua is very strong. They need to get out of our country, and they need to get out of our country immediately. I will say this: I believe all illegal immigrants. Look, I support legal as in lawful immigration. That is America first. That I support. Illegal immigration, unlawful immigration, I do not support. And I believe all illegal immigrants should get out of our country immediately. And, there are 20 million, I believe, about illegal immigrants that came into our country under dumb as a rock Kamala and crooked Joe Biden's administration. And, of those, there are more than, if my numbers are correct, official numbers, more than, I believe, 10,000 convicted criminals, murderers who have come into our country illegally. Convicted, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so, there are so many bad people roaming around from an illegal immigration perspective. They need to get out of our country, and they need to get out of our country immediately. I believe ICE is doing a tremendous job as well, with Tom Homan leading the way. I think it's a tremendous initiative under the leadership of President Trump. And, our country is back, and our country is back in a really strong way, like President Trump said during his joint session of Congress recently. And so that's my position against illegal immigration. And just coming back to what I was saying a few minutes back, I visited the southern border in Arizona, near Rio Rico in Arizona a few days back, like I said, on May 7th, and with some great law enforcement officers. And, there was a gentleman. So this is a video that's on my campaign website. It's www.garybarveforamerica.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was at the southern border. The southern border was a few feet away from me on this side. And on the other side, there was a great American, I call it in the video, a great American war machine. I call it a great American war machine, which is pictured in that video as well. And there was a great American military personnel, young guy, I'm not going to mention his name, but a young guy who was sitting on that American war machine. And I had a conversation with him. I said, "Hello, sir. I'm running for president 2028 election, Republican supporter of President Trump." And we just got into a conversation about, the situation at the southern border. And obviously, it's improved tremendously under the leadership of President Trump. I think illegal immigrant crossings are down like 99%, 98%, like almost down to zero. But, this gentleman said to me, the military personnel, he said, Gary, if let's say a cartel member, right? Let's say a MS-13 gang member or a Tren de Aragua gang member or a Sinaola cartel gang member.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me, if this gang member fires a bullet at him, he was on the great American military personnel was obviously on the US side of the southern border, right? So
Right.
he said to me, just a few feet away from the southern border. So he pointed at the wall, the great wall that President Trump built. But he pointed at the wall, the military personnel, and he said, if a cartel member climbs on top of that wall from the Mexican side and fires a bullet at him meaning the military personnel, he said he's not allowed to fire back because it will create an international incident. And he said, if someone, like a sniper, or let's say someone gets onto a building on the other side, the Mexican side of the border, and fires from the Mexican side of the border, not necessarily from on top of the wall, from the Mexican side of the border, fires a bullet at the military personnel, he said he's not allowed to fire back at the cartel member because it will create an international incident. And I said, that's a travesty. And so, I don't usually make decisions on the fly, they call it, right? Like spur of the moment. Because, like President Trump says in his books, he says, his book, Think Big, by the way, President Trump's book, Think Big, is truly incredible. And it's inspired me to run for president. It's the greatest book ever written after the Bible. So you want to read One Nation Under God, that's my book. But prior to that, I will say read President Trump's Think Big. But in the book, he talks about making decisions. And he says, analyze the data in a fixed given amount of time, practical amount of time, and then make a gut instinct decision about whatever it is you're trying to decide. And so I use that to make decisions in a very, very strong way, along with prayer to Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. But, in this circumstance, this was a very obvious thing. And I made an instant decision. I recorded a video and I said, to our great police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, and first responders, but especially in this case, that military personnel, and to any American. I'm saying this right now, and I'm saying this as the candidate for president of the United States of America in the 2028 election, as a Republican supporter of President Trump. I'm saying this: if a cartel member, gang member, MS-13 member fires a bullet at you, or anyone, if they fire a bullet at you, either from the American side of the southern border or from beyond, from the Mexican side of the southern border, if they fire a bullet at you, feel free to fire back at the cartel member, gang member, the person firing the bullet at you who is trying to take your life. Feel free to fire back, and I said shoot to kill. I said shoot to kill, because I don't care if there's an international incident. Your life, the life of the police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, first responders, and all American people is more important to me than handling an international incident, which I will handle, and I'll handle it very strongly. And so I have your back. Fire back and shoot to kill if that happens. Save your life, protect your life. I will have your back. And so that's something I recorded in the video as well. And so that's my position against illegal immigration. And I'm a big supporter of, I do believe this: we are a country of law and order. I'm a big supporter of law and order. It's the fabric. It's the fabric that holds our country together and makes us, like I said earlier on, makes us the greatest country in the world, along with a few other things which I mentioned previously as well, Brian.
What about when law and order has gone haywire? So, for example, the Supreme Court again, in the 2020 election, there was a number of states that filed a lawsuit, alleging fraud, and the Supreme Court refused to hear it, saying that the
Fraud?
state
Are you talking fraud related to what? Fraud related to election integrity or what?
election integrity fraud, and the Supreme Court refused to hear it, saying that the states didn't have standing. And then, of course, the Supreme Court has made these rulings against, Trump deporting these criminals. Although clearly Biden, as the president, was allowed to bring them in, so it just logically and clearly, legally, if one president can bring them in, another can take them out. It doesn't make any sense. So a lot of people are saying that, law and order, and specifically the judiciary, is so corrupted, and they're literally.
Who is saying that? Who is saying that? Do you know
So
people?
many people are saying that. Well,
Are you on the Democrat side? Are they on the Democrat
no,
elected
oh
officials side?
no, absolutely not. No, no, no. Well, okay. So, for example, there was tons of federal judges that
No, I was not
disappeared.
talking about the judges aspect of it, my friend Brian. I was talking about law enforcement. Let's talk about that first. I'll answer your question about the about the Kilmar Garcia person and things like that.
Well, I mean, the law
MS-13 gang
enforcement.
member.
I mean,
But
the
look. Let me say this, Brian. Let me
yeah.
say this, my friend. Law and order. I believe most police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, and first responders are great people who run towards danger to protect civilians and residents they do not even know. And I believe this is bravery and courage of the highest level, and we must defend and not defund the people in these groups. I strongly believe that.
Hmm.
Now, I said most, but the Democrat Party tries to pick that one isolated incident that may or may not happen in a year and blows it up out of proportion. Like, out of proportion is like an understatement. And that is highlighted by fake news media channels such as CNN and MSNBC. What about the other 9,999, if I'm talking about a small percentage, let's say 9,999 tremendous incidents where our law enforcement and the people in these groups are risking their lives for our American people? Why don't they cover that? And so, look, I'm not saying it's a perfect thing. I'm not saying it's a perfect thing. Only Jesus Christ lived a perfect life. We are all imperfect human beings. I believe that. But I'll say this: I love President Trump, and that's one of the reasons why I believe President Trump is perfect. But, Jesus Christ is the only one who lived a perfect life. And so, I will say this: law enforcement are doing a tremendous job in our country. Tom Homan is doing a fantastic job in our country. Why doesn't CNN and MSNBC cover Jocelyn Nungeri's horrible incident? Why don't they cover Rachel Morin's horrible incident? Why do they want to fight for Garcia, Kilmar Abrego Garcia? There's a Democrat senator, I believe, from Maine, Van Hollen. Is that what his name is? Van Hollen, who actually visited El Salvador to try and get the MS-13 gang member, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, back into our country. I'm not going to fight for that. This guy, Kilmar Garcia, there's police reports about things where he hit his wife. There's, conversations that he had interactions with MS-13 gang members at a parking lot. He has an MS-13 tattoo, I believe, on his, or whatever you want to call it, on his knuckles. This guy's a bad guy. And under the Alien Enemies Act, it is my opinion that under the Alien Enemies Act, President Trump had the right, and I believe he still has the right. I don't know exactly what the Supreme Court's saying right now, but
They're
I
saying
believe he has the
no.
right. Hold on. I believe he has the right to send these, gang members back to their country of origin. And that's my position on it. And look, I believe in law and order. We are a country of law and order, so we have to sort of follow due process. But there's legal ways to counter this. And President Trump is the 47th president of the United States of America, and he is the commander in chief, and he is the chief law enforcement officer. But we will work within the bounds of law and order to send these illegal immigrant gang members back to their country of origin. And it's very simple. I want to keep the American people safe and secure. And like I said, I'm ready to take a bullet for our American people. And so that's my position on it, my friend Brian.
So let me answer your question. You said, what is the Supreme Court's position? I just looked it up. So on May 16th, which is 3 days ago, the U.S. Supreme Court extended a temporary block on the Trump's administration use of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to deport the Venezuelan migrants. So a 7-2 decision. So not even that close. So the Supreme Court's united, saying
It's not united. You said it's a 7-2, right? So it's not
seven to
united.
two, but almost. There's a lot of people that say that many of Trump's appointees are betraying him. Maybe they're
Who's the source? You got to tell me the source, my friend Brian. Who's the source? I haven't heard that.
all right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of Charlie Kirk's spewing that. If you look at Charlie Kirk's feed, he's talking about the Supreme Court and all that stuff.
Brian, you really dislike
There's a
Charlie
lot
Kirk.
of
Give me
people.
give me the backstory there. What's going on, my
Fine.
friend?
Well, you want some backstory on Charlie Kirk?
If you want to share it with me, I don't mind it. I like Charlie Kirk.
I'll tell you the backstory. So,
All right,
Charlie
quick.
Kirk.
Now you got 2 to 3 minutes for you as well, my friend.
I keep my timeline. Charlie
All right,
Kirk's
all right.
Charlie Kirk's his 501c3 Turning Point USA is intensely incentivized financially to push early voting and mail-in voting. That's kind of what he does. That's what they do. That's where all their donations come in. Turning Point Action's heavily involved in that. They have a project called the Mount Vernon Project, which they list on their website, Turning Point Action's website. And it says, this is a quote, that they want to take over the GOP. And what they mean is capture all of the state chairman positions, all of the national committee positions. And in fact, they were relatively successful doing that in Wisconsin, following about $121,000 of donations or bribes, as some people might call them, to the various Republican county GOPs in Wisconsin. But the problem is they got in. Those races still lost. They didn't deliver. The paid Turning Point employees that are just a clearly conflict of interest didn't do a good job. Voter turnout wasn't improved. The vote, percentages didn't improve. So it looks like, and many people especially are saying in Wisconsin, again, especially given those two losses, including Pennsylvania, that this is all just hype. This is smoke and mirrors. It doesn't work. The word on the ground is that Elon Musk's America PAC took over a lot of the door knocking and voter outreach because Turning Point was not hitting their targets. Yet they're raising more money than they've ever raised. The last 2 consecutive years, they've done about 80 million. I suspect when their financials drop, they might have already dropped. They probably in 2024 doubled that, probably 200 million that they raised. Yet you don't see the results. It's all just hype. It's all just smoke and mirrors. So, and if you talk about their culture, and I know I'm coming up on my time limit. Charlie Kirk just put out a video. It was about a week ago. He was on a college campus, and he was handling a question from a college student. They were asking about, I guess, the party culture and the sororities. And this is a direct quote of Charlie Kirk. He says it's like a murky gray legal area if a male and female, sorority and fraternity student have 5 drinks. But he said specifically the woman revokes consent. And the woman that was questioning him said, well, wait a minute, she revoked consent. So she said, isn't that sexual assault? It's really rape. There's a lot of legal precedent that. And Charlie Kirk says, oh, that's not fair. It's a murky gray legal area. So he's promoting himself, this party boy frat culture, which in fact has made it through his entire organization, because there's allegations, including a police report, of a Turning Point employee sexually assaulting another, and then their Turning Point Action chief operating officer, Tyler Boyer, covering it up completely. And there's
I
legal
like
letters.
Tyler. Tyler's a nice guy. I've met him. I spoke at an
Tyler
event that
Boyer's a nice guy? Is that what you said?
I like. I said from my
Whoa.
interactions with Tyler. Are you talking about Tyler Boyer?
Tyler Boyer is one of the
I like
biggest
Tyler Boyer. I like Tyler Boyer. Look,
gaslighters.
Brian,
Most
look, my
dishonest.
friend, look. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, Brian. I don't know what you have against Turning Point. I don't
Oh,
know
the
what you have
facts is
against
what I
Charlie
have.
Kirk. No, let me,
You're gonna have to
my
work
friend, let
on
me
your
respond.
discernment of people, man. I'm
Let
sorry.
me. All right, that's okay. That's okay. You and I can have a difference of opinion on this. We're not supposed to agree on everything. Look, here's the thing, right? I'm running for president of the United States of America in the 2028 election as a Republican supporter of the greatest and the 47th president of the United States of America. I have interacted with Charlie Kirk. I've interacted with Tyler Boyer. And from the interactions that I've had with them, I think they're great people. And they support President Trump. He wears a MAGA hat. He wears a
Hey, let
Trump
me
hat.
interrupt you there, because originally they were supporting DeSantis, and what happened is they had an event in Florida where that DeSantis didn't show up, but they were planning to fully back and endorse DeSantis, I've been told. And in fact,
Well,
he was
sure,
leading
sure.
some of the
Let's do this, Brian.
straw
Brian, let's
poll.
do this. Look, Brian. Look, you clearly have some issues with Charlie Kirk,
No,
and
it's all
that's your thing.
facts.
Hold on,
You
my friend, Brian. Let me
can't
quickly.
disregard Christian values. Rape is okay. Let's cover up sexual assault. Let's use strategies that lose elections. You can't cover up those facts because you like.
Brian, let me quickly respond to that. You said a few things. I have no way to confirm whether what you're saying is accurate or not. I will say this. I've met a lot of people with Turning Point USA. I've met a lot of people with Turning Point Action. I like the people. I think our young people in America have tremendous potential. They're great people. And Charlie Kirk, I feel this America Fest event is a tremendous event. I was there for the December 2024 America Fest event. I think it's a tremendous event. And look, I'll say this. I'm not here to sort of get into why you may or may not like Charlie Kirk or whatever your situation is. That's your thing, and you figure it out, my friend. That's okay. I'm saying from the interactions that I've had with Charlie Kirk, I think I've had a good interaction with him and people on his team. And you're not going to change my mind at all right now. And my gut feel is Charlie Kirk's a good guy, and we'll see what happens. I think Charlie Kirk is a really, really good guy, and he's a MAGA guy. But let me say this. Look, let me say this. Okay, all right. Well, let me say this, my friend. We can talk about something else. I'm here to interview about my campaign for president of the United States of America in the 2028 election as a Republican supporter of President Donald J. Trump. I know you're a patriotic guy. I know you have that great American flag, our great American flag. And on your hat as well, you're making the Make America Great Again hat. And let me say this. I want to make a quick comment about our great American flag, because I believe in talking right now in this situation. I believe in talking about something that you and I think will agree with, because you clearly love the great American flag. I clearly love the great American flag. And so can I talk about our great American flag, my friend? How about that?
Yeah, to do it. But then I got a couple more hard-hitting questions for you. So
you can ask me whatever you want. I'm okay with it. But let me talk about our great American flag first. So, our great American flag on certain occasions flies half staff or half mast, right? And this is a policy position that I have come up with. And if I talk about it with President Donald J. Trump, I have a feeling that he's going to agree with me on this. But I'll say this: our great American flag at times flies what they call half staff or half mast, right? Because say like Jimmy Carter died recently, right? And our great American flag was flying half staff or half mast. And there's a great speech by President Trump. Like I said, I've been tremendous, and it's very obvious. I'm tremendously positively influenced and inspired by the man, President Donald J. Trump. And in the speech, he says, "Have you challenged accepted wisdom?" And I said, that when it comes to the Great American flag, that sort of makes sense to me. And I said, why should our Great American flag fly half staff or half mast? I want our Great American flag to fly high and proud, full staff, full mast all the time. And I believe in showing respect to certain situations and events as a country. I believe that, Brian. But I want our great American flag to fly full staff, full mast, high and proud, all the time, 24/7, 365. I want our friends to see our great American flag fly high and proud. I want our enemies to see our great American flag fly high and proud. I want our American people to see our great American flag fly high and proud all the time. And so I made a policy statement. It's a campaign promise. I will get this done if I'm elected the next and the 48th president of the United States of America as a Republican supporter of President Donald J. Trump, the greatest and the 47th president of the United States of America. I made a campaign policy. If I get elected president, the flag, the American flag, will always fly high and proud 24/7, 365. And we will find an alternate way to show respect to certain situations and events. And, Michael Stapleford from the Good Morning Keys radio show, he said to me, he said to me, what if the American, what if we want to show respect to certain situations and events? How will you show respect to certain situations and events? Or I think he asked me something to that effect, and I gave him an example, right? I said, let's say I die, right? Let's say I die, right? And I believe I'll be a two-term president. I genuinely believe that, Brian. I believe I'll be a two-term president of the United States of America. And so I said, let's say if I die, I would want our great American flag not to fly half staff or half mast. I want our great American flag to fly 1 foot higher to show respect. Hopefully, people want to show respect to me. I think I would have done a great job for our country. I believe I will save America as a Republican supporter of President Trump. And so, that's my position on our great American flag. And so I'm going to answer your questions. I would prefer it if you not ask me questions about the topic that we were previously discussing about before I talk
No,
about
we're
our
going to get some new topics.
it's not going to lead us to any place of a conversation that'll be a productive conversation at this point.
I agree. Let me ask, what's your stance on H-1B visas?
So all I'm going to say on that is I support legal, as in lawful immigration, that is America first, that supports the American economy, that supports American values, and that keeps America first. It has to be, it's not a charity. And look, I support lawful as in legal immigration, but I want to serve the American people, and immigration policy should be aligned in a way that is beneficial to America. And, there are a lot of great legal, as in lawful, people who immigrate into our country legally. I do believe that. And that's my position on it. That's my position on legal, as in lawful immigration. Mm-hmm. Illegal immigration, I'm completely against. I think I've made that position very clear to you, Brian.
Right. I think specifically, there was some analysis that was done on some of the fraud within the H-1B program, and some specific examples. There was janitors and cooks and even English teachers. But the H-1B is supposed to be, you cannot hire someone who's American. You can't find a qualified candidate. So then you reach out to other countries. It's a special, fast track program. But clearly there's some fraud there, and it was actually highlighted as like a divide between Elon Musk and President Trump, because President Trump initially said, well, this is, we should maybe look at this, maybe pause it, reformat it, whatever. And Elon Musk, of course, is extremely, extremely pro H-1B. So given like that knowledge of, there was some fraud that was identified for cooks and English teachers and janitors. What do you think about the program in that respect?
Well, I haven't heard about the fraud you're talking about, and unless you give me a source, I'm not going to make a definitive comment. Like I said, I'm not in the habit of making instant policy decisions, unless it's something that, it's like the military personnel's life is at risk. I'll make that an immediate decision. If it's the right thing to do, I will do it instantly. But usually I don't do that. I haven't heard about this fraud, but like I said, I'm going to stick with my original statement, Brian. I support legal, as in lawful immigration, as long as it is America first. And if it is not America first, it needs to be looked at. But I believe President Trump has a tremendous policy when it comes to legal, as in lawful immigration as well. And when it comes to Elon Musk, I think he's doing a tremendous job with Doge. I think he's doing a great job with Doge. And, we found a lot of fraud with the Democrat Party elected officials when it comes to Doge. There's so much money that's been spent wastefully that Elon Musk has found. And I think I applaud him for doing that. I think he's done a tremendous job with Doge.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But under the leadership of the man, President Donald J. Trump. It's President Trump's initiative. I mean, remember this, Brian. This is happening all these America First agendas that you and agenda issues that you and I are talking about right now with so much happiness and joy and confidence is because President Trump won the election in, and the greatest political comeback in the history of our country on November 5th, 2024. So I want you and your viewers and everyone to be cognizant of that. President Trump did a tremendous campaign,
Mm.
and I explained some of the circumstances he went through, and he still won, and he won big against Dumb as a Rock Kamala and crooked Joe Biden and the Democrat elected officials. So that's my position on the situation when it
Let,
comes to legal, as in lawful immigration.
let's ask a question. This might be challenging for you. So, you said before that President Trump was perfect, or he had ran a perfect campaign.
Well,
Um,
what I said was I want to quickly make a quick correction. I said only Jesus Christ lived a perfect life. I am
mhm.
Christian. I respect all religions, but I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I believe the Bible is the Word of God. I said only Jesus Christ lived a perfect life, but President Trump is perfect to me because I love President Trump. That's what I said.
I see what you're saying there.
I'm saying the emotion that I have for President Trump is an emotion of love that makes me believe he's perfect to me. That's what I'm saying.
I
Only
understand.
Jesus Christ lived a perfect life, and that's a fact to me. Again, I respect all religions, but only Jesus Christ lived a perfect life.
Mhm. No, that makes sense. And I'm a full Trump supporter, and I voted for Trump 3 times, and never
Did you
even
vote for Did you vote for President Trump in the 2015, 2016 election cycle as well?
in the 2016 I did. Yes. Yep. And I
Very
always
nice,
voted
very
for
nice.
him
Have you
in
met
the.
Have you met President Trump?
I haven't met him. I've also voted for him in the primaries, in primaries as
Okay.
well. But especially over DeSantis. I'm not a big fan of DeSantis. But
Well,
the
DeSantis is a horrible guy. Can I talk about Ron DeSanctimonious for a little while, if you
the-
want? I can politically
yeah,
attack
well,
him and
yes.
politically distance him.
I'll let you talk about Ron, but before we get to that, or maybe work this in, so one criticism of President Trump that even I have is his stance on the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically the vaccine, which is
Well,
proven
hold on. You
effective.
mean the China virus? That's what you mean, right?
Yes, the China virus, but President Trump has not necessarily said, "Oh, you know what? Well, I was wrong on some of my comments on this vaccine. It clearly was ineffective. It clearly caused a lot of harm and death."
I
So
don't
I,
think you
I
said that.
understand for legal reasons
I
why
don't
he
think
would
you said
do
that. And look, I support President Trump. He did a tremendous job with. You're talking about the previous first 45th presidency. That's what you're talking about right now. Look, President Trump did a tremendous job when it comes to COVID. Look, Brian, don't believe the Democrat narrative one bit. All right, he did a tremendous job. President Trump did a tremendous job with the China virus, which came from China. That's why it's the China virus. And the vaccines and everything. He did a tremendous job. I will say this: I do not believe in mandates. No mandates. So what I mean is, if a American person wants to take the vaccine, that person should be allowed to take the vaccine
they
if that
shouldn't,
person
because
wants
it
it.
doesn't
Hold on,
work
let me
and it
complete my
kills
thought.
people.
If a
So they
person
shouldn't
does
take
not
it.
want to take the vaccine, that person need not take the vaccine for the China virus. That's my position on it. No mandates is my
Yeah,
position on it, man.
my position is it should be pulled from the market entirely because it's akin to a type of genocide and crimes against humanity. So that's the real truth. Like I understand why Trump maybe doesn't take that position, but he should, because that's the truth.
Well, I support President Trump's position when it comes to the China virus. Don't call it the COVID-19, my friend. It's the China virus.
It's I agree. Well, I agree that it came from China, but also several of those U.S. Labs where they were working on various experimentation. I mean, that was involved. U.S. was involved as well, and I don't know. There was a lot of labs that were documented in Ukraine, for example, and there's a lot of continuing research about weaponizing vaccines and viruses, and uh, you know.
Well, I will. We want to talk about the pharmaceutical industry. I'm going to talk. This is a little bit of a pivot because I think I've made my position very clear. I support no mandates for the China virus
Mhm.
vaccines. That's my position on it. If someone wants to take the vaccine for the China virus, they should, if they want to. If they do not want to take the vaccine for the China virus, they do not have to take the vaccine for the China virus. But President Trump signed, I believe, an executive order very recently. The price of, he calls it the most favored nation rule when it comes to the price for prescription medications, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they're going to go down by about somewhere between 50% to 90%. And I think that's a tremendous thing that President Trump is doing. And look, I know you and I are sort of talking about a few situations where you're saying you disagree with this or perhaps you disagree with that,
Hmm.
but the reality is our country was going down a tremendous negative spiral under dumb as a rock Kamala and crooked Joe Biden and the horrible Democrat elected officials. President Trump has brought it back, and he has brought it back in a way that no one else could have achieved. I want to talk about Ron DeSanctimonious. You mentioned him. Ron DeSanctimonious, and put Nikki Birdbrain Haley in that bracket as well. Ron DeSanctimonious is the most disloyal person in America. And I'm not just saying he's the most disloyal elected official in America. I'm saying he's the most disloyal person in America. And I'll share exactly why with you right now. So, President Trump endorsed Ron DeSantis for his governor election, the first run in Florida. And Ron DeSanctimonious was dropping like a rock in the polls. He was trailing his opposition very bad, and he was dropping like a rock. Ron DeSanctimonious was dropping like a rock. And, he went to President Trump. Ron DeSanctimonious went to President Trump, and he begged President Donald J. Trump for his endorsement. And Ron DeSanctimonious, is a really disloyal guy. But President Trump is a great guy. And he said, all right, he endorsed Ron DeSanctimonious for his governor's election, first election cycle. And Ron DeSanctimonious, primarily because of President Donald J. Trump's endorsement, won the governor's election in Florida for the first run. And how does Ron DeSanctimonious repay or show his gratitude towards President Donald J. Trump? He decides to run against President Trump in the 2024 primary election cycle and enjoys a massive defeat at the hands of MAGA and at the hands of President Donald J. Trump and our great American people. And so, my simple message to the American people listening in right now, it's a very simple message. Remember this. So, my simple message is this: if Ron DeSanctimonious could not be loyal to the man who supported him so much, who endorsed him for his governor's election, if Ron DeSanctimonious could not be loyal to President Donald J. Trump, do you think he will be loyal to you, our great American people? Think about it. And I'm going to talk about Nikki Birdbrain Haley as well. I call her Democrat running as a Republican, Birdbrain Haley. And, Nikki Haley was appointed the United States ambassador to the United Nations under President Trump. Nikki Haley said on air, on video, that she's not going to run against President Trump in the 2024 presidential election cycle. And she still ran against President Trump and enjoyed a phenomenal defeat at the hands of President Donald J. Trump and MAGA. And so, same with Nikki Haley. If the American people, my simple message to them is very simple. If Nikki Haley could not be loyal to the man who supported her so much, President Donald J. Trump, do you think she will be loyal to you, our great American people? I don't think they're going to be loyal to the American people. I will say this: MAGA, which is Make America Great Again, MAGA, will reject Ron DeSanctimonious. MAGA will reject Nikki Birdbrain Haley in a very, very strong way. And, that's my position on it. And I made a post on my campaign social media. It's in my book, One Nation Under God, as well. I said, Nikki Birdbrain Haley has a better shot at becoming the nominee on the Democrat side than she does on the Republican side. No, I say that because a lot of her support, if you want to call it support, in the 2024 primary election cycle, a lot of her support came from liberal people. That's a fact. Her support came from the liberal people. And so, I say to Nikki Birdbrain Haley, join the Democrat Party if you want to join the Democrat Party at your earliest possible convenience. And while you're at it, please invite Ron DeSanctimonious to join you on the Democrat side. And, I think Ron DeSanctimonious will probably ignore Nikki Birdbrain Haley's invitation, but you never know. But, I think the disloyalty from Ron DeSanctimonious and the disloyalty from Nikki Birdbrain Haley would be really appreciated by the Democrat elected officials. I said that on my campaign social media as well. And so that's my position on these two people. And I can say a lot about a lot of people. Ted Cruz is another real beauty. He used underhanded tactics in the 2016 election cycle to steal votes from Ben Carson, who I happen to like. I've met Ben Carson at events. Ben Carson's a great guy, but he stole votes from Ben Carson, and he's He's got this monotone, really boring interview style. Nobody really wants to put him up on TV. I'm talking about Ted Cruz. And, he's got no personality. Ted Cruz has got zero to no personality. And, there are a lot of people that I can politically attack. And I think I've already politically attacked J.D. Vance, and happy to answer any questions that you could have for me, my friend Brian.
Well, so you make a good point, and so you're mentioning specific people that some would call them, maybe they're establishment or they're former Democrats, and maybe
Rhinos. It's called Brian. You know the
I
term
wasn't going to
rhino.
throw it out, but yeah.
Republican in name only. Ron DeSanctimonious, Nikki Birdbrain Haley, and a lot of these people. I would say this. I'm going to say this. All right. I'm going to go and say this. Everyone who ran against President Donald J. Trump in the 2024 primary election cycle is, in my opinion, a rhino, a Republican in name only. Look, I did not dream about running against President Donald J. Trump for president in the 2024 election cycle. I did not dream about it. Instead, I risked my life for President Donald J. Trump. I talked about my speech on July 13, 2024. I've taken on these gangs and cartels such as MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, and I have been loyal and big supporter of President Trump right from 2020. And so, these people who ran against President Trump in the 2024 primary election cycle are now trying to position themselves as loyal supporters of President Trump. I'm not going to let that happen because they're not loyal supporters of President Trump. Look, let me say this, Brian, let me say this. When you run for office against a political opponent, against an opponent for, let's say, the presidential election cycle, you're most definitely looking to defeat that person. And if the opportunity presents itself, you're looking to politically destroy that person. And so let's talk about opportunistic rhino, weak little Vivek. I know he has postured himself as this MAGA guy. And, he has probably got like 6, 7, 8% of the vote in Iowa in the primary election cycle. But, my simple question to Vivek Ramaswamy is, opportunistic rhino, weak little Vivek, that's how you call him. But my simple question is, if you are a loyal supporter of President Trump, why did you run against President Trump in the 2024 primary election cycle? He's a political guy. Vivek Ramaswamy, or opportunistic rhino, weak little Vivek, is a political guy. And look, I know that he has been endorsed by President Trump in the Ohio governor's election. I know that. So look, I'm the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump in the country. So I'm ready to do this. Look, I want to win this 2028 presidential election. It's the most important election in the next 4 years, in my opinion. Now, I will say this. I respect all elections. I respect town council, city council, school board, uh, statewide elections. I support federal elections. They're all important elections. Congress, Senate, all elections are very important elections. In fact, I say, in a certain way, a lot of these elections are closer to the American people, right? So I support it. I have nothing against that. I support all elections. I support all decisions. I support all President Trump decisions as well. But look, the presidential election in 2028 is still the most important election in the next 3.5, 4 years because it has maximum impact on the American people and really the rest of the world. And so I want to win this 2028 presidential election, not for some power grab, but I want to make America great again, keep America great, and save America as a Republican supporter of the greatest and the 47th president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump. But I will still do this at the cost of it negatively affecting my presidential campaign. If people that President Trump is endorsing in this 2026 election cycle, such as, I'll take two names to be specific, Byron Donalds and opportunistic rhino, weak little Vivek, if these people officially and publicly endorse my campaign for President of the United States of America in the 2028 election as a Republican supporter of President Trump, I will almost definitively, but still potentially, stop politically attacking these people. And I will probably even be great friends with them because that's how it works a little bit in politics. Or the other thing is, if President Donald J. Trump himself says to me, Gary, I want you to stop politically attacking the people that I have endorsed, I in the sense that President Trump has endorsed in the 2026 election cycle, I will do that. I will do that for President Trump. I'm the biggest, most loyal supporter of President Trump in America. And I've seen some real beauties in the political realm, really, really bad people. And I'm still willing to do that for President Trump at the potential cost of my 2028 presidential election campaign, because I love President Trump. I love our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, and I love our great American people. But I'll say this, if I don't want to be Byron Donalds or opportunistic Rhino, weak little Vivek, or anyone else. I want to be Gary Barve. But I will say this: if I was them, I would say, if they have a certain level of confidence, they will say, let Gary Barth politically attack me in the sense these people that I mentioned. I think they should be okay with that, but I'm willing to stand by what I just said because I love President Trump, love America, and love our great American people.
I see what you're saying, and there's you're mentioning a lot. I agree with you first of all on Vivek. Absolutely agree with you that he's just an opportunistic. Just look at how he
Oh,
made his.
come on, say it, Brian. You say it a little. Let's make it live. Say
He's a
opportunistic,
rhino.
Rhino, weak little Vivek.
Weak little Vivek. I'm fine with that.
Thank
Weak,
you, thank you.
weak little
Opportunistic, Rhino,
Vivek
weak
who
little Vivek. I
sells
like that. Thank you,
fake
Brian.
Alzheimer's medicine. That's the other thing about
What's that?
Vivek. You know how he made his fortune is selling Alzheimer's medicine that didn't work. He knew it didn't work. He and his
Well, I don't know. I don't know much about all of that. I will say this: on the political stage, he's a disaster. I'm talking
yeah.
about opportunistic Rhino, weak little Vivek. On the political stage, he's a disaster. He campaigned and he campaigned and he campaigned and he spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on his previous campaign for the 2024 presidential election cycle, and he got like 6, 7, 8% of the vote in Iowa. He immediately dropped out of the election and started supporting President Trump. He's an opportunistic guy. And I don't mind. I don't mind. I hope these guys run against me in the 2028 presidential election cycle. I'm looking forward to the battle that lies ahead, and I'm looking forward to politically defeating and, if necessary, politically decimating the people that run against me, because I believe I'm the right man to lead our country as the next and the 48th president of the United States of America.
And I have a question though, because you're talking about these rhinos and what they've done, and then of course they're pretending now to be Trump supporters as an opportunistic approach. And many
Yes.
people would say that in Congress, for example, there's a bunch of rhinos that they're directly blocking Trump's policies and working against President Trump, and even people within Trump's campaign or some of his advisors, some of which were former DeSantis campaign employees. So how can you prevent that from happening to your campaign? If you establish yourself as a forerunner, they will literally send people in to infiltrate your campaign, infiltrate your advisors, so that if you were successful, they could work against you and block you and slow you down, just like they're doing with Trump.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is I do not have context to what you're saying exactly. You haven't mentioned specific names of people who you say are going against President Trump, so I'm not going to make a comment on that. I
Half
think I have a
half
small
the
team.
Republicans in
Hold on.
Congress.
Let me respond to your question, Brian. I have a small team. I have some people in Iowa who are working with my campaign. I have some other people who are working with my campaign in an official capacity. And I think it's a great start to the campaign. I will say this. I say this in my book, One Nation Under God. I genuinely believe this. I'm a very honest guy, Brian, and I'll say this. I believe, let's talk about a political campaign, right? I believe in a political campaign, the candidate running for office, the candidate running for president in this situation, me, Gary Barve, candidate for president 2028 election, Republican supporter of President Trump. The candidate running for office should be the hardest working person in the team. And he, or if it's a woman, then she, whoever it is, that candidate should be the one to work really hard and lead the team towards a success. I think that is how it works. And, I expect a lot from my team. And I think I have a lot of great people on my team right now. And I'll say this, maybe he's watching right now. Great American Iowa Farmer has joined my team very recently as well. And by the way, I love our great American farmers. They're great people. They're very patriotic people. That's one thing that I love about our great American farmers. And I just want to say this. I have about a few minutes. I have another interview right after this at 3 p.m. Central Time, which would be 1 p.m. our time, 1 p.m. our time in Arizona.
Okay.
And so I wanna give you a few more minutes on this as well. But I will say this: our great American police, sheriffs, ICE, military, veterans, firefighters, first responders, oil and gas workers, coal mine workers, farmers, truckers, motorcycle riders, our great American restaurant workers, bartenders, caddies. These are the people, small business owners, even big business owners. These are the American people who are patriotic and who built our great country. They built America. And, I think the Republican Party has been completely redefined by President Donald J. Trump in the previous years. and it is now your Republican Party, the Trump. It is President Trump's Republican Party because he's the leader of the Republican Party, but it really is your Republican Party. It's the people's Republican Party, and the country is the people's country. America belongs to the American people. I'll say that unequivocally, and I say that very proudly and very happily. And so, that's one thing that I wanted to share with you. I think, and again, circling back to what I was saying about our great American farmers, I resided in Iowa for a few months, and I met a lot of great American farmers there, and they're great people. And I'll say this: a lot of these politicians, I'm not going to name names because it's not advantageous to my campaign right now. That's why I'm not going to name names. But there are a lot of, or some, at least a lot of politicians, I will say, who take advantage of the people in the groups that I mentioned right now, because a lot of the people in the groups that I mentioned right now are simple people. And I say that in a positive light. I say that in a positive way. They're simple people who love the country and they love our great American flag. And so I want to fight for these patriotic, hardworking American people. And I want to be their president. I want to be their leader. And I say that in a humble capacity. And I'm saying it because I want to make America great again, keep America great, and save America as a Republican supporter of the greatest and the 47th president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
Well, good point. And I want to ask this question. So how do you expect to compete with some of the Democrat front runners, specifically Governor Newsom, he'll bring in millions and millions of dollars, and you even have some prominent Republicans, going on his podcast, helping him launch his podcast, helping him gain publicity.
You're talking about Gavin Newsom?
Yeah, Gavin Newsom.
I'm looking forward to defeating Gavin Newsom. We call him Gavin Newsom, right? President Trump calls him Gavin Newsom. He's a bad guy. I want to say a few things against Gavin Newsom. And look, I'll answer the campaign fundraising question as well. I'm in talks with a lot of people right now. I think when the ability is there, I mentioned a few things earlier on why I believe I'm the right man to lead America in the 2028 presidential election, right? I said I've come out of nowhere really when it comes to, a national election. City Council in 2020, U.S. Congress in 2024 in Florida, and now I'm running for president with a lot of name recognition. I'm interviewing with you, Brian, with the MAGAMind podcast. So it's been a great, tremendous start to the campaign. And so I think the fundraising is going to happen. I'm bullish about that. I'm very strong about that. The fundraising will happen, and it'll happen very fast. I will say this: dumb as a rock Kamala spent, what is it, including all groups put together, $2 billion. I'm talking billion with a B, or more than that, $2.25 billion, billion with a B, on her campaign. And she had a disaster, right? And she had a disaster for a lot of reasons, which I mentioned earlier. But, they spent 2.5, something like that, $2.25 billion. President Trump did not spend anywhere near as much money, but he was just the better candidate. He was a better candidate. He was a stronger, better candidate with better policy. Jesus Christ is with him. He's a big Christian, and so many reasons why President Trump won. And so, look, I think we're going to raise a lot of money. I think we're going to get a lot of support from MAGA. MAGA is with me. And I'll say this: I made a post on social media a few weeks back. I said, I am MAGA, and the United States of America is President Donald J. Trump country. And I think it's going to be a tremendous, tremendous campaign. And like I said, I've interviewed with Newsmax. I've done a video with Fox News for Lara Trump's show, The View with Lara Trump show on Fox News. Those two have not been broadcast yet, but I hope they'll be broadcast soon. I visited Gutfeld, who is the number one American talk show in America. He's the number one talk show in America. Mm-hmm. I visited his show as a member of the audience and met some of his team members. I've met with Gianno Caldwell at an event as well, who's with Fox News. I've had dinner with John Bachman, who is with Newsmax. He has that awesome show with Newsmax. John Bachman now. And I've interviewed with Mike Carter. I've interviewed with Christina Loren with RSP. And that interview, I think, Brian, was seen by about 100,000 people live. And, I've interviewed with Jen Garcia, like I said, with the Epoch Times as well. And so, and a lot of tremendous, awesome regional shows as well. I want to mention the Good Morning Keys radio show. Michael Stapleford, he backed me in the sense he let me be a guest on his show right from the start of my political U.S. Congress campaign. Annie Ubelis and Curtis Bennett with the Southern Sense show have interviewed me. And so many, the Jeff and Bill show, the Alex Stone show, which I'm going to be on in probably another hour and a half to 2 hours as well. A lot of people have interviewed me, and I'm not taking the names of all the shows that I've been on. Miriam Gibson has interviewed me, so many people. and the momentum is building, and the momentum is building very fast. And there's a reason for that. People are beginning to believe in my campaign more than they used to, like the day back, right? So it's improving with time, and it's improving very strong. I work 90 hours a week. I'm not like saying this as an understatement. Literally, I work 90 hours a week on the campaign. I love what I do. As President Trump says, you have to love what you do in your career and in your life. I love what I do, and I want to serve the country. And like I said, I'm ready to take a bullet for our American people, and we're gonna have a very successful campaign, my friend. And we have 3 minutes. I know it's gonna be 11:30, or I think it's gonna be. Is it 11:30? It's gonna be 11:30 in
Yes.
probably 3 minutes.
Mhm.
This has been a tremendous interview. If you have uh, something more to discuss, I'm happy to do that. But I really
What is your business background? We didn't get into your business background.
okay. 3 minutes. I got to do another interview. Otherwise, I'll let me do this. Would you have me back on your show at some point?
Sure, we can do that.
You would?
Yes.
All right, I'll be back on your show. But we still have 3 minutes. Do you mind if I make a closing statement
Yeah,
for
go
this
ahead.
segment of the interview?
Make your closing statement. I'll show your website again on the top.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, my name is Gary Barve. I'm officially running for President of the United States of America as a Republican supporter of President Trump, with the goal to make America great again, keep America great, and save America. And I'm running because I love President Trump. I love our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, and I love our great American people. And like I said, I want to make America great again, keep America great, and save America. And I'm a believer in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I believe the Bible is the Word of God. And like I said a long time back, I genuinely believe Jesus Christ is with President Trump. Jesus Christ is with our country, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And Jesus Christ is with you, our great American people. And I'll say it, Jesus Christ is with me. And we're going to save America. We're going to have a great campaign. And I'll end it with this: we are one nation under God, and in God we trust. May God bless you. And may God bless the United States of America, the greatest country on earth. Thank you, and let's win this. Make
Thank you,
America
Gary.
great again. Keep America great, and save America. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary Barve, running for presidential candidate in 2028. Please do visit his website. Again, I'm Brian Ference with the MAGAMind podcast. You can follow me on X at Brian Ference1 or True Social at Brian Ference, and of course, MAGAMindPodcast.com. Thank you to all my viewers, and God bless. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much. God bless. Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate you. Thank you.